Are you in medical school and just miss dancing? Do you miss those times where you could escape the competitive cutthroat atmosphere of medical school, where all everyone does is talk about their step scores and residency plans? Try Bhangra Medical School. Thanks to Bhangra Medical School, you can still get out the urge to dance while also pursuing a career in medicine. Side effects include, but are not limited to, no sleep, no friends, fatigue, failed exams, lying to your parents, missing practice, weight gain, weight loss, nausea, digestion, indigestion, and sweating balls. Before dancing in medical school, please consult the Bhangra Podcast.
This is the
Bhangra
Podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm your host Sup Grover. Sorry, I can't stop laughing at that intro. On today's episode, we're going to sit down with 3 medical professionals and talk through their experiences as medical students who didn't want to give up competitive Bhangra. You'll hear about some of their hardships, but you're also going to hear about some of their success stories and advice for those of you who are aspiring doctors who are thinking about doing the same. First, we're going to hear from Angela Loa and Bhavneet Singh.
Hey, my name is Angela. Last name is Loa. I am now a 4th year in med school. I go to Medical University of South Carolina, or MUSC. I went to Vanderbilt for undergrad, and I've been dancing since 2012. Started off at Vanderbilt's team, ended up at DRP, and now I captain DDR, or Dunia Derang.
My name is Bhavneet Singh, also go by Bobby, or BSG, whatever works for y'all. Right now, actually officially today, I'm a 4th year medical student, July 1st. So it's official. I go to Oakland University, William Beaumont School of Medicine, or OUWB for short. And for undergrad, I went to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, go blue. And then I've been dancing since 2009, mostly with Frutile. Also made some appearances with MBT.
So both Bobby and Angela are seasoned vets who have danced all across the country, being cornerstone members of teams that have showed continued success. What you'll learn about these two throughout this entire podcast is that they're both extremely humble. They don't really toot their own horn too much, but that's why I'm here. Some notable performances from Angela include Dunia Derang, otherwise known as DDR, at Bruin Bhangra 2018, and the Real Punjabis, otherwise known as DRP, at Bruin Bhangra 2016. I actually remember watching that DRP performance at Bruin Bhangra 2016 and remembering Angela for a very specific moment during the Sup segment, where she actually went and she was doing this click in the front of the stage, dead center, and she did this nakra look and then dropped into this really hard-hitting batka and ripped that move. And for that, I really remember her, and I think that's why it's one of her most notable performances. And for Bobby, you should check out Fertile Shakeen at Circle City Bhangra 2017. He's going to be the guy who runs out the begetting in the turquoise-ish Vardi. And then you should check out the Michigan Bhangra team at Blowout 2016, where he actually won Best Nakra. At that performance, he actually hit this one little dab in the front of the stage that made the crowd go wild. In my mind, I'm jealous of what these two have already achieved. Multiple first-place performances and being considered some of the best dancers in the country. Now, it's also important to put some context that a lot of these accolades that they have achieved were prior to entering med school. So while we were discussing, I was trying to understand, for people who have already achieved so much, why potentially compromise your career for something that you've already gained?
For me, I'd done research a lot in the past, so I'd already had an interest in science, but it was through dance that I discovered an interest in humanities as well. Through Bhangra especially, that I met a lot of people, had a lot of one-on-one connections, and realized how powerful it is to have arts in your life. For me, it made sense to go into medicine based on this love for science, this love of humanities, how to bring them together. Well, there's nothing more intimate and emotional as the relationship between a doctor and a patient. So for me, it made sense to continue dancing through med school, to continue to cultivate that kind of empathy and emotional understanding with people. And the type of people that are at med school tend to be type A, neurotic kind of people. Sometimes it's good to break away from that and realize that there's more to life than your step score and your clerkship scores.
For me, I wanted to still hold on to Bhangra because it was such a huge passion of mine. I've been dancing since 2009 with Frutile, and even a couple years before that. This was a really, really big part of my life, and it's helped shape who I am today in terms of being a leader, in terms of knowing the value of teamwork slash collaboration, gaining confidence in yourself. So like letting go of Bhangra Medical School was something that I really did not want to do. And also for me, dancing was a way to escape the stress of med school, just to have my own time to dance, hang out with my brothers, get away from the med school environment, because sometimes when you're stuck on a campus all day, you can go a little bit crazy with all this medicine. So it was nice to take a break from reality, go to practice, go to competitions, and just dance. It's such a fun thing to do.
I get exactly where both of them are coming from. Bhangra is an escape. It opens their eyes to an environment that's not just focused on test scores. And if you notice something, both Bobby and Angela never really mentioned competing, first place performances, being the best dancer as the reason why they wanted to keep dancing while they're in medical school. Their why was very deep rooted in something more outside of that competition environment. And understanding that deep rooted why helped Bobby a lot when he had to talk to his parents about continuing his competitive Bhangra journey while in medical school.
And then now we're moving to 2017, and then Circle City was kind of like the last comp before like the summer hit, and before like the summer before medical school. So at 2017, Circle City was like, yo, like we're not dancing before med school starts. I mean, it's the last one. We've got a first place trophy. I think it's a great way to end. I made my Instagram post. I'm like, I'm done. I'm retired. Bam, like that's it. No school. Or no Bhangra, right? But then Fertile went to Berg 2017, and I went with them.
The competition that Bobby just referred to is also known as Bhangra in the Berg. It's held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and is hosted by Carnegie Mellon University. If you actually go to the Fertile Bhangra in the Berg 2017 performance, you'll see Bobby in a baseball cap on the right side of the video.
And I was like, wow, I really miss dancing. And I really think I can make this work. So then 2018, we decided to apply to MCV, Motor City Bhangra. It's in Detroit, Michigan. And I was like, wait, Bobby, this is a perfect opportunity. It's a home competition. You don't have to, go to that many practices as much. Your parents will like it because it's in Detroit. You don't have to, travel anywhere. So I was like, all right, Mom, Dad, here's the situation. Fertile's dancing at MCV. I really want to dance just to get my mind off of things. And granted, I did pass first semester medical school, luckily, scraping by. So they're like, okay, you passed medical school. You've done well, you passed the first couple tests in 2018. Go for it. So they were like, go ahead. So I think for me, that having that proof that you can pass in medical school is a great leverage to hold against your parents to tell them that you can dance. Because at the end of the day, can't say no to that if you're able to pass medical school. And then after 2018, they, for all the other competitions I danced at, they're just like, as long as you're okay with school and you can manage it, go for it.
You can actually go and see that Instagram post that Bobby put up, the one where he's saying, I'm retiring, I'm done with competitive Bhangra. On Fertilia, we still give him a hard time about that post because I think he's danced at 5 or 6 comps since that post went up. So it's pretty funny that he put up this whole and beautifully written post about what Bhangra has meant to him and why it's going to be so hard to retire. And then he goes and still dances literally less than a year later. So it's pretty funny. Bobby mentioned that he had to prove to his parents that he could do both competitive Bhangra and medical school at the exact same time. He strategically picked Motor City Bhangra as a competition to do that proof. It was a smart choice. The competition was held in Detroit. He's from Detroit. But for Angela, more than just proving to her parents, it was about proving to herself. And I'll let her tell you how that all went down.
So my parents didn't have a response because I didn't tell them for a really long time. I told them, you know what? I even blacked out this part of my memory. So I want to say I told them maybe after the first year of med school. Yes, that is what happened, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it for a year and keep it up before I spring it on them.
So what did she have to prove? Well, let's put some context around all of this. Angela has never been a captain of a Bhangra team prior to Dunya Derang. So when she was on DRP for all those years, she was never captain of the team. Now, she is the solo captain, meaning the only captain of Dunia de Rang. And being a captain on a Bhangra team is no simple task. You are essentially in charge of set design, dancer development, production of the performance. You literally ensure that this competition and this performance goes smooth. And if things don't go smooth, you're the one who's going to take the fall for it. This is a job that's typically done by 2 to 3 people. And Angela was doing this job by herself in her first year of medical school. Angela recounts her first competition being a solo captain, which was Buckeye Mela 2018. Buckeye Mela is a Bhangra competition hosted by the Ohio State University, and this comp is typically referred to as Mela.
Mela was fine. Mela was fine. We brought home something that was bigger than Fertiles.
I had the option to edit that out, but it was such a good burn that I just couldn't.
So here are the circumstances surrounding Mela. It's the first comp that I would be solo captaining for. It also happened to be the weekend right before a block exam on that Monday after Mela.
Block exams are no joke when it comes to material. There's tons and tons of stuff in it. I can give you one example. So if you have a block exam about your heart, you need to know all the physics. You need to know how it works, pretty much all the inner workings of how someone's heart works. You need to know all the ways it can go wrong. You need to know how specific drugs affect the heart. You need to know the histology of the heart. There's just so much material in a block exam. It's, for me, being a non-med student, I can't even understand how they capture all that material and study all of that within 6 weeks. And Angela was dancing at a competition when she had one of these huge exams on the Monday after the comp. And these exams only come about, there's only about 3 to 5 of them that a med school student will take throughout a year.
Unfortunately, during that weekend, the only time I had to really study was right after the competition during after party. So I just stayed back in the hotel and studied a lot, as much as I could, I think. For me, that comp was way too much Angela involvement. I was doing a lot of the choreography. I was uploading choreography tutorials. I was critiquing people's videos. I was doing all the formations. I even booked all the hotels. There were obviously areas where I should have delegated to people, but I did a lot of things on my own, and that's not a sustainable way to move forward. It took my teammate Rebecca, who is now a co-captain of our team, to literally come out and say to me, Angela, can I please help you with something? Because there's no reason why you should be doing all of this by yourself. And honestly, I'm a lot happier now. I have a lot more balance in my life. I'm able to have a relationship and actually spend time for myself now, and not just be consumed by dance and school. And I will say Mela taught me you can have the best outcome possible. You can get that trophy, you can get everything that your team deserves, but it's still an important lesson in that's not everything. Getting that first place is not everything. The next day I went into my exam and I passed it, but I had to take remedial lessons after that for the 6 weeks until the next block exam, for one of the areas which I was lowest in. So even though I came out of it fine, the journey was a lot rougher than it should have been during my second semester in med school.
Offline, Angela mentioned that she was getting 3 hours of sleep a night during her Buckeye Mela prep. So on top of the pressure of a block exam, she had the pressure of putting her team on her back. And the good thing was DDR pulled off first place. They ended up shocking the world there. And they became a formidable team that now teams fear to compete against. Angela did make a compromise. She ended up having to take remedial lessons for some of the content that was on that block exam. Outside the classroom, there's other compromises that the med school student has to make because of Bhangra. Think about it. Every second you are in practice, that is time you could be volunteering, researching, or doing activities to boost yourself as a medical student. It's also time you give up that you could be socializing and hanging out with your friends. Both Bobby and Angela made these compromises.
I just feel with Bhangra, there's always going to be a compromise that you have to make, because Like when you're in medical school and you go to practices, competitions, that's a free time that you have that you can literally do anything else you want in medical school. Like I said, research, volunteering, extracurricular clubs, studying, shadowing, all those things you're going to compromise by going to practices, going to competitions. For example, at least for Save It for Everybody, it's not really part of the medical school, but there are multiple times. And Save It for Everybody, for those who don't know, it's a Metro Detroit Save It group, volunteer group founded by people in Metro Detroit community. Just doing great volunteer opportunities for the whole community. And I wasn't able to go to those certain events, and at some point I did feel guilty, like dang, like I'm going to practices but I'm not volunteering. Like, am I bad? Like, I feel bad about this. But at the same time, it's like, I set aside time for this to go to practice and have fun. I can definitely make up for it with another event. Um, so for me, I definitely compromise those things, but you make up for it later on. So
Not only are you sometimes missing like opportunities that you'll see a lot of other classmates take, um, sometimes you'll also, or at least in my case, I felt like I missed out a lot on getting to know some of my classmates. Um, I skipped a lot of social events. I would say that the people I'm close to in med school are very few, but those who I am close to are I'm super close to. So I'd say like maybe something that I sacrificed was having a wide circle in med school. I guess when you see other classmates, having super huge social groups and involved in so many different things on campus, like it's hard not to feel insecure, but keep in mind that, you're making a choice that's best for you and that's okay.
After hearing everything that Bobby and Angela have had to make compromises on, I could understand if someone listened to this and be like, why the hell would I dance during med school? That makes absolutely no sense. And it does take a special person. Like I mentioned earlier, Bobby and Angela are unique individuals. They're people who understand the why of what they're doing. They're humble. They do something because they love it. But that doesn't mean that there's not tools and methodologies that they use to make sure that they're able to survive medical school and doing Bhangra at the same time. When we were talking, our conversation started steering more towards do's and don'ts and advice for those of you who are thinking to do the same as them.
I still really struggle with time management, even more so at the beginning of med school. Um, it's really hard. Like, bottom line, there are never, ever going to be enough hours in the day to get everything done that you want to get done. There's always something that you could be studying more for, you wish you knew a little more about. There's always like more team stuff to work on. Um, I think this year I've kind of hopped on the bandwagon and of bullet journaling or the bujo as the community affectionately calls it. I think the most important thing to know about it is it's basically a way to prioritize your to-do list because for me I used to make these massive to-do lists. Like anytime I thought of something I could do or even a good idea of, that sounds nice to finish, um, I would just write it down and it'd just be an obscenely long list of things to do that would stress me out even more. But bullet journal, the way I do mine, it forces me to only put down 3 or 4 things every day. And those have to be like the most important things. Like you are not allowed to do other things unless you do these 3 things first. Which I think is really important for a personality type like mine. Like when I get super stressed out, I will find any small thing to do to make myself feel better. If it's like washing the dishes or cleaning the house, procrastinating on what actually needs to be done. Um, so I feel like that's been a pretty useful tool for me. Um, yeah, especially if I look back to the beginning of med school when I used to just like drain all my time into team stuff and neglect a bunch of other school related things. It's really important to have your priorities.
do talk, I guess, do talk with your team that you're dancing for and tell them how your schedule is and what practices you can and can't make, because I feel like it's really important to be clear up front with how much commitment you can put forth to the dancing for that semester, because you don't want to go in and be like, yeah, like if you want to dance in medical school and the team's like, all right, dope, that's awesome, but then you don't tell them that you can't make like 3 or 4 practices in a row because you're so busy, or that you can't make the week before, or 2 weeks before, because then they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you didn't tell us. So do talk with your team about how your schedule is and what practices you can or can't. But do not dance in the first semester of medical school, because I think that is where you're really thrown into the fire. And like I mentioned earlier, you're just like given a crap ton of information that you have to somehow memorize, understand, apply, all the above and more within those like first like whatever 5-6 months, and you're really trying to figure yourself out, like how you study, um, your group that you want to hang out with, like how to dissect, a cadaver. It's like such big things you do in that first semester of medical school that it's really tough to like manage time, and I think you need that first semester to kind of adjust. So that's a big don't for me. Again, this might be personal, but I think just use that time to get promoted to medical school. Another, I guess, don't is don't. Again, this is really hard, but don't like compromise your own physical and mental health just to keep on studying and just to keep on going and going and going. And now that's a lot easier said than done, 100%. Going into like med school and dancing and all that stuff, but if you don't take care of yourself, we all heard that phrase. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. And I think there were multiple times during that in medical school where I really felt burnt out, or I really felt my physical health was like lacking. Like I was really like walking from one area of the parking lot to the next, and I was already winded. I was like, that never happened before. Or I tried to go for a run and I just couldn't, because I was just like so physically drained. And I was like eating Oreos at like 11 p.m. midnight, and just, I mean, not saying that's a bad thing. You need to have some some time to treat yourself. But like my eating habits were out the door. My physical health was out the door. My mental health is like all over the place. And I, at least before medical school, I feel like I was comfortable to get through a set. Again, I still thought my stamina could be a lot better, but when I actually like was in medical school, I'm like, yo, like my stamina is trash, and it was like really bad. So I guess for me, don't compromise your mental and physical health here. It's easier said than done, but talk to people, talk to your friends outside of medical school, get your thoughts out of your mind, like whatever it is, whether it's a counselor, whether it's your best friend, your significant other, teachers, professors, mom, dad, whoever it may be.
So everything that Bobby and Angela have said so far makes me think that Bhangra is an investment. It's a time investment, it's an effort investment, and they've talked through all the tools that they use in order to make that investment, whether it be bullet journaling, planning goals, checking and making sure that your mental health is okay. But when I think about an investment, I always think about a return. They understood and they talked earlier about their why. But what's their return on investment besides just a trophy and hanging out with friends? What more do they gain by continuing to do Bhangra through medical school?
So I'd say the number one thing that dancing has helped me through is how to be a female leader. And I do think it's important for me to include female as a qualifier. So I think back when I first started captaining, this would have been 2017, I believe. I was still doing research as my gap year. I still hadn't started med school yet. I will say that when you're in a male-dominated dance genre like this, unfortunately, a lot of the role models you have as a leader are going to be male. It's just the way it is right now. I feel like, I don't know how other women out there feel, but there almost felt like an unconscious pressure to behave a certain way, to be taken seriously. I felt compelled to need to yell. I felt like, do I have to be angry at people? Do I have to assert myself all the time just so people listen to me? I think that being part of Dunia Derang was a huge trial run for me, because I knew that that's not the type of person I want to be like. That is just emotionally draining for me. And I don't want to come out of dance being a worse person. So it was a really good training ground for me to just figure out, who am I as a female leader? I took all the things that people said I shouldn't be, like I shouldn't be soft, I shouldn't cry, I shouldn't be vulnerable, I shouldn't be that honest with people all the time. I tried to just experiment and do those things that, like, honestly are 100% authentic for me. And it just taught me, like, hey, that's actually a perfectly valid way to do things. Like, it may not work for everyone, but you know what? It is true to me, and that's all I need. And I feel like it's a huge advantage, honestly, to be a different kind of leader in no matter what kind of field you're in. So when I apply that over to medicine, it gave me like a real sense of identity, because I feel like you won't really know until you see it, but in the hospital, there's such hierarchy. And when you're a medical student, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and it's so easy to get super insecure and feel like there's only one right way to do things. But it's so important to figure out, for me at least, it was so important to figure out what kind of leader I am so I can go through school with that sense of integrity and that sense of self still. Like, again, medicine in a lot of ways is very similar. It's male dominated at a lot of the leadership. So, like, how do you become the kind of leader you want to be and not get swayed by what the older generation is like, I think. I don't know. I feel like I kind of rambled a little bit, but maybe the ladies out there get it. And I do want to clarify and say, like, for any woman out there who actually is naturally assertive and is a great, strong leader, um, continue being you. I didn't mean to imply that all women are, like, very soft and scenty as I am, but if you are, then
Growing
that's
up,
okay
I
too.
was kind of like a person that really didn't, how do I put this? I wasn't really confident in myself and the decisions that I made, just because I was scared of what other people might think. I was always scared about the worst side of every decision that I made, and I kind of, let that hold me back from doing certain things. But I guess with Bhangra, especially as helping with choreography, helping with formations and all that, like, and kind of implementing that, and, having people, like, I guess, kind of give you, like, good reviews and also constructive reviews. I think that's what kind of, like, told me, like, hey, like, it's okay to share your ideas. It's okay to just, you know, say what your mind thinks and just do it, because who cares what other people thinks? If it's bad, it's bad. At least your real ones will tell you if it's bad, right? And you learn from it and you grow. So I think for me, that was really important going into medical school in terms of just being confident within myself and trusting myself, especially with third year medical school and in rotations, when we have to present for all those people who are going into medical school, thinking about going to medical school in your third year or whenever you're in clerkship, what we call rotations when you go in the hospital. You go and see a patient on your own. Um, you get all the history, you perform a physical exam, you come back and you present um, your information to either the resident or the attending. And my goodness, I was sweating balls. Like, I was, like, you could see, like, the sweat stains under my shirt. Like, I wasn't confident with what I was saying. I was, like, going over and over again with what I think that the diagnosis could be, and I wasn't really confident in myself in the beginning. But I was like, hey, hold on, Bobby, you've done a lot of things with Bhangra that are, like, are just as stressful, like competing, leading people. Believe in yourself. If you're wrong, that's okay. It's all part of the process. And I think once I told myself that, every time I saw a patient, that it's okay if you're wrong, just learn from your mistakes and move forward, I think I kind of calmed down a little bit and I was able to be okay with the mistakes that I made. So I got Bhangra, like, thank for that, big time. Bhangra taught me how important it is, and that's an understatement, of teamwork and collaboration. You can't do stuff on your own. You're going to get overwhelmed. It's not going to be the best product. Same thing that kind of transitioned into medical school for me. First semester of medical school, I was, like, kind of overwhelmed with how much we have to know, and I was like, crap, like, I don't see anyone else being this stressed out. I feel like they're doing everything on their own. I think I should do everything on my own too. I don't want to be a nuisance or a burden for someone. Um, so I kind of just stuck with myself, but I feel like that was a really bad thing. I didn't really reach out to other people, And I didn't really, go to like office hours and stuff like that in the first semester just because I didn't want to be a bother or whatever like that. But I realized that no, it takes a whole effort. It's not just on you. You can utilize other people to help you. Um, and I think that also translates into with patient care. I think I was in my peds ER rotation, and I was with the physician, the ER attending, and he was also working with a PA and a nurse. And I just found it so cool how they were trying to work up a patient for some like knee pain, which we're very familiar with knee pain, right? I thought, the attending physician are just gonna like make his own diagnosis and kind of disregard like what the other team, like the PA and the nurse, PA physician assistant. Sorry, I don't want to use the acronyms, but PA is physician assistant. What was saying, but honestly, he literally sat down with the nurse practitioner plus the PA, and I was like, all right, here are the symptoms. What do you think is going on? And they kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And after that, they all went to see the patient together, and I thought that was like really really cool to see like how like you have a team, like a healthcare team to take care of a patient. So it's not just all on you as a physician, as a medical student. You got to utilize your team. I thought that was awesome. And I do want to make a quick note that Bhangra still looks good on a residency application, in my opinion. Like I'm sure I haven't gone through residency interviews yet at all, but I've talked with other classmates, above me, and who have danced, and it's been brought up in their interviews, and it's a good like something that's different about you. Not too many people can say they've danced on the team. So that's a plus.
So now what happens if you've done medical school, you're graduated, you're about to become a real doctor, you're starting your residency, but you're just not satisfied with your Bhangra career? You don't feel like you've accomplished everything, or you just don't want to stop dancing because you love it so much. Well, enter Mitra Patel.
My name is Mitra Patel. I am a second year internal medicine resident at the University of Toledo Medical Center. I went to Northeast Ohio Medical University, or NeoMed, for medical school, and I went to it, I think, from 2015 to 2019, and it's located in Akron, around Akron, Cleveland area. I did that for my undergrad and my medical school. I've been dancing for, I would say, almost 5 to 6 years now. I think I started out with Buckeye Bhangra in like the 2014-2015 season, and then I've been dancing with First Class Bhangra from 2015 until right now. Unlike most people, my undergrad was 2 years versus 4 years for most people. My second year of undergrad pretty much was all school-related stuff, and during that time I was in Youngstown, Ohio, so there was no teams there. I didn't really get a chance to dance. After my 2 years of undergrad, after I graduated, I did like a research year for fun at Ohio State. And that's when I first had the opportunity to dance with Buckeye Bhangra. And I did that for a year. And I just loved dancing so much that like dancing for 1 year was just not enough for me. So I think I actively started looking for teams that I could potentially dance with throughout medical school. Bhangra was something that, I didn't want to give up because it's something that I enjoyed so much. And, everyone would tell me that medical school is going to take so much time from just time in general, and you are not going to be able to do it because your life is on hold. And even though I love the field of medicine, it's like my dream job that I'm going into, I love other things about life as well. It's not like my only passion. Bhangra is another passion that I have, and that's just something that I didn't want to let go of, and why I felt like, it was necessary for me personally to continue dancing just for myself. When I started dancing in medical school, I didn't know of anybody else that did the same thing at that point. So I kind of had to find my own way in that aspect, because there was no one really that I could, ask for advice or anything on how they, dealt with the combination of med school and another huge time commitment such as dancing. So I kind of had to figure it out for myself, and I did struggle a little bit the first year. So in thinking back from that, I would probably say that the things that I did know was what limitations that I would need to have when it comes to dancing and when it comes to med school in general. What team, the members in my team and what they expected of me from like being part of the team in that aspect, because there were certain points where I wanted to do a lot more than I was capable of when it comes to just time management and making sure that I juggle both medical school and dancing at the same time. So I wish I knew the limitations that I would probably need to have during medical school to still be able to dance and enjoy it.
When I asked Mitra more specifically about some of these bumps that he encountered, he recounted his experience prepping for Motor City Bhangra 2016, where First Class Bhangra went live. Going live in Bhangra is a lofty goal for many of us East Coast dancers where the opportunity is very rare. And for Mitra, he wasn't going to give up that opportunity no matter the cost.
I had a competition, and like the weekend before a big test, on like Monday. That was MCB. Yeah, I was MCB. We went live. Oh man, that was not good. I was studying during the mixer, and it just did not. I thought that I was like really smart, and I was gonna study during the mixer, and I was good. I made all these plans to study during the weekend, and I tried to study during the mixer. That didn't work out well. I tried to study during the after party. The after party like got crashed, and it was like in the hotel that year, and like there's like the fire alarm went off or something like that. Something crazy happened at that after party, and so everyone ended up coming back to the rooms. So I didn't study then either. And then Sunday I was too tired, and again I was just like F it. It's not worth it. And then yeah, that test did not go too well on Monday. Let's just put it at that.
After MCB, Mitra learned his lesson. When he had another big exam coming up, which was Step 1, he didn't take any chances. For those of you who don't know, Step 1 is the first part of the United States medical licensing examination, and in summary, the scores that you get on your Step 1 exam determine what residency you're going to do after medical school.
No matter what, do not dance during Step 1. Step 1 was the most brutal time ever. It's like you pretty much schedule every single minute of the day. Like when I was studying for Step 1, I had a schedule from like 7 a.m. to like 11 p.m. on the dot. Like I had scheduled time for meals, I had scheduled times for break, I had to schedule time for studying, like a scheduled time for the bathroom sometimes. It was like you had to schedule everything. And most people actually I think take Step 1 around like the May, June-ish time. So I remember when I did mine, I think the last time that I danced was in Big Ten. Big Ten was even a stretch for me. Some people just like the entire half of that year don't dance nowadays, but when I first did it, I kind of let it slide because Big Ten was a pretty big competition.
So Mitra mentioned that Big Ten was such a big deal, and I'm going to put a little bit more context to make all you listeners understand why. So Big Ten was First Class Bhangra's opportunity to go up against Shan Punjabdi or SPD. The SPD doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm just going to give them one anyways. SPD is considered one of the best Bhangra teams in the world. They performed in India, won, I think, 6 first places in a row here in the States. So SPD is up there as one of the best. FCB is considered one of the best, and it was a clash of the titans, essentially. And Mitra did not want to give that opportunity up. Mitra was wearing royal blue at that performance.
And I was like, this will be fun. So I kind of let it slide. But after that, I was done. I was done until I took my test.
Mitra is now a second-year resident, and he hasn't felt that his residency has stopped him from dancing at all. It was a good thing that Mitra picked up on his mistakes that he made during medical school, because for him, dancing in residency wasn't much different than dancing in medical school.
For me, nothing really changed. I think it was the same thing. The time allocation was just different for me. So for medical school, I'm usually studying all day long, and I would practice at night. In residency, I work pretty much all day long, and then I come home and I practice. So it wasn't actually as much of a difference as I thought it would be. The only thing is that you have like certain commitments to residency because it's work. So you can't take more days off than you can like in medical school, because there are a lot of times in medical school where I would just take days off, and sometimes even weeks off because classes weren't mandatory, and then I would just go to Pittsburgh and I would go to practices at night, and then I would just go to the library or something like that during the day and study. But the time commitment wasn't much different. Actually, there's a little bit less stress for me in residency because it's more like work. I put the work in a lot in medical school, learning everything that I need to learn. So now it's kind of like work in a way where, if I come back around like, 8, 9 p.m. or something like that from residency, I know that I have like around an hour to 2 hours to practice and get the exercise in, I guess, and the working out that I need to do to condition myself. So I think the transition wasn't that much different. I still made the same videos. I still did the same amount of like critiquing of my peers and stuff when it comes to like dancing videos and things like that. So I don't think much changed for me. It became a little bit easier, if anything. I found ways to make it work. Like, for example, like I think the last competition that I danced at, the second competition I danced at during my residency was Mela in this year, earlier in the year, and I was on night shift before that competition. Like the month of that competition, I was on night shift. So what our responsibilities at night is like we didn't like actively take care of patients. We pretty much just answered any calls or anything like that occurred, or if the nurses had any questions. So I would pretty much just, set the ringer on high. I would go to the gym in my hospital and I would just dance, and I would send videos and things like that. I mean, not send, but I would record videos at night. There was like a treadmill or an elliptical there. I would condition, and I would stop whenever I got any phone calls. I would answer the phone call, and then I would just go back to dancing and working out and things. So it worked out.
So Mitra made it sound very easy, but there were some things that he said that really raised my eyebrows. First, he said he was dancing from 2 to 5 a.m. And then on top of that, he's doing conditioning at that time. And then when he's not on night shift, when he comes home at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., he's dancing then too. And these are all for competitions that he's already won before. Buckeye Mela is a competition that FCB has gone to. He's competed at with FCB, and he's already won multiple times. So what I really want to understand was he's dancing at these competitions that he's already won at. Was this all worth it? Is all this work that he's putting in outside of his job, being a doctor, worth it?
Bhangra has made a very big impact in my life when it comes to that. And I guess the 5 to 6 years that I've been dancing for, they have changed my perspective on a lot of things, especially based on the people that, I've danced with. So for me, I've had the spectrum of being a new dancer on FCB to the point of being a seasoned like veteran who was then like the person that was guiding the younger dancers on the team as well. So you work with a lot of different personalities, especially when you have a big turnover like that over like a 5-year span. You work with a lot of different people. People respond to different types of motivation and respond to different types of approach, in that aspect. And so that really, comes over into medicine for me, because, every patient for me is going to be different. You have to approach them with what they're very comfortable with. You have to learn how to work with different personalities and different thought process, things that you might not be comfortable or used to. And I think that really came through for me, and I think that was a big difference. Some of the veterans, while I was a newbie, I learned so much from Sid, Ram. They were big, and they taught me a lot of different things. That one person had a very chill mentality, one person had a very aggressive mentality, and it kind of balanced each other out in a way. But different people responded to different methods, and they all worked really well. And I think that honestly has applied to my my actual practice as a resident right now. Even working with my co-residents, it helps me understand where I need to where I should fight my battles and where I should let it go. And the patience that is required, the teamwork that is required to function as a well-oiled machine. All of the teachings that I've kind of experienced from being on a Bhangra team has translated over into my real life.
I want to thank Bobby, Angela, and Mitra for taking the time to talk to us. We recorded this audio back in the first week of July. Both Bobby and Angela were just starting their 4th years, and for Mitra, July is typically the time when new resident starts. So for him being a 2nd-year resident, things were pretty hectic, to say the least, dealing with a bunch of newbie doctors. If I could describe these 3 individuals in one word, the word I would use is excellence. It's honestly in their blood. Not only do they exude excellence in their dancing and careers, but also in their ability to communicate. They drew parallels between both their passions and effectively could speak through it. Now, do you have to have excellence flowing through your veins in order to competitively dance during medical school? Probably not, but what you will have to do is ask yourself the tough questions. Do you have what it takes to endure the side effects of doing Bhangra while in medical school?
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bhangra Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please help us out by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser, as that really helps others find the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of them at the Bhangra Pod. If you want to know what else is going on in the podcast world, sign up for our newsletter and join our Discord server to get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. There will be links to all of those in the show notes.